This is HBR News number 534. Venezuelans celebrate while Commies Seethe, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this insanity so that you are not consumed by it. I'm your host, Brian, and I'm joined by, as always, my lovely co-hosts, Hannah Wallen and Dr. Randomercam. Yes, hello, Mike.
Hello.
Are you still in Scotland, by any way, with family, or is that done?
I'm back in England. For the time being. We'll see.
We'll see. Indeed. Anything can happen in this wild and wacky world we live in. All right, so this week we're going to be talking about the news of yet another World War III, because it's always World War III. Tim Walz is not running for re-election, a psycho attacks J.D. Vance's home, and more, so stick around, it's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterward. Oh, by the way, happy Insurrection Day, and let us give a moment of silence to all of the dead. Okay, so just the one woman, the actual one of the protesters. All right, but anyway, so I just thought I would share this. I got this one made on Grok. It's fun to create your own AI images, but what I think is more fun is taking an existing photo and altering it because, I don't know, it just looks a little bit better. So if you are also the Senate, then please give this stream a like. But what are we going to be doing in the Patron show? Well, we're going to be looking at this article from Slate. I have the archive link up here. That is, I just happened to see, I wonder what Slate is up to. I don't even, I guess they still exist, because this is from today. And they put out a new thought piece, which is, hot, I guess, entitled, Gen Z is more progressive than millennials, except in one crucial way. The most progressive generation ever? It's complicated. So I won't ask that anyone in the show here right now tell me what you think the one crucial difference is, but I think you guys, if you've been watching us for a while, can probably guess. But we're going to get into this article and find out what it is that...
Is it the Jews?
No, it's not the Jews. No, not this time. Not this time. It's something a little bit more, let's say... safer to talk about for one. It's it's probably the safest thing you can talk about and openly criticize, despite it supposedly having so much power. So we will be talking about this one in the Patreon show. So if you guys want to join us for that, you have to become a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord server where you'll be able to enjoy all of the additional content. And if you give it higher levels, you can even participate in the discussions yourself and, yell in our faces or whatever it is that you guys want to do. Maybe just constantly distract us or talk about other things or pretend that you're listening, but you're not listening, and then you just kind of jump in the middle and say something completely irrelevant. Yeah, you can do all of that, but just become a Badger first, please. And feedthebadger.com/subscribe. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we have been yeeted from the internet, then please go to badgerfeed.com. That's badgerfeed.com. That's where all of our content lives, and hopefully we will see you all there. All right, so with all that said, let us get into today's stories. All right, so we have a little bit of a follow-up to the daycare fraud scandal that has blown up in Minnesota. There have been some other related things, maybe just coincidence, maybe not. But we're going to talk a little bit about some of that. So on December 22nd, Washington State Democratic Senator Lisa Wellman, pictured here, Democrat of Mercer Island, Washington State, pre-filed Senate Bill 5926, which expands existing public records exemptions for personal information, such as home addresses, phone numbers, and photographs of licensed family home child care providers to include all licensed or certified child care providers, regardless of setting. The bill's stated intent is, at least on paper, to protect providers from safety risks, harassment, doxing, and targeted retaliation. Something that I guess people that do home child care services are always going through because of how controversial it is and political it is. Wellman's office emphasized that the legislation was drafted in response to concerns raised by child care professionals and was submitted before viral allegations of fraud emerged in late December. The bill has sparked significant controversy amid growing national scrutiny of potential child care subsidy fraud, particularly following high-profile investigations in Minnesota involving alleged misuse of taxpayer funds by some providers. Critics, including Republicans and conservative commentators, argue that the timing, despite the pre-filing date, makes it appear as an attempt to shield potentially fraudulent operations from public and journalistic oversight, especially as independent reporters have used public records to investigate similar claims in Washington state. Reports of harassment towards providers, particularly in Somali communities, have also intensified the debate, with state officials urging investigations through proper channels while condemning intimidation. The bill remains in pre-filed status ahead of the 2026 legislative session, with no confirmed fraud cases yet substantiated in Washington. But there have been isolated or some allegations that have surfaced in Washington, Ohio, viral calls for investigations into Columbus daycares mirroring Minnesota's, and past DOJ and HHS cases in states like Illinois, Missouri, California, and Maryland involving subsidy misuse and abuse. Ohio has proactively highlighted its anti-fraud measures, attendance-based payments, etc., to contrast with Minnesota. So we talk about the Minnesota fraud scandal, and obviously if you hear about something, that means on some scale, that means it may very well be happening in other places and at varying other scales. Even though this woman had filed before the viral videos of this had gone out, for people who are paying attention to what was happening with things like Doge and USAID and all these other fraud cases that were opening up, this was already under the microscope on the federal level, right? It was already something that was being looked at, which is the reason why the YouTuber went to Minnesota to begin with. He was prompted by the fact that this was going on, according to reports, and his viral video only confirmed the suspicions already, or at least further drew attention to it. So when people are talking about the Somali fraud, child care schemes that were going on to essentially redirect taxpayer money to these communities, the reason why it was being exposed was because it was already being looked at. It was already being discussed. So I actually believe that this woman is taking some pre-measures too, because Washington State also has significant Somali populations that are also sort of operating in the same way that they do in Minnesota, where it's sort of like, it's not just like you have a town and there are some people from Somalia there. It's more like there are large communities that are almost completely that one ethnic group or that one group of people. So anyway, I think that in my opinion, this woman is trying to cover her ass, but I thought it's one of the smaller stories this week, but I thought I would bring it up because we'll have to see where it goes. So,
a mantra you'll often hear from those in the government who want your every movement tracked and your every transaction archived and every blink of your eye recorded on some all-powerful database. A mantra you'll often hear from the likes of such people is, if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear. Mm-hmm. Irony aside, no, yeah, we do. We have a great deal to fear from the bastards who make the laws, and they're always making new laws forbidding us from doing things that we've already done, such as criticizing the bastards who make the laws, or just from opposing the laws that those bastards make, or opposing their deliberate unwillingness to enforce the laws that we all agreed they would enforce. You'll be aware of Aesop's fable of the rabbits who demanded to have equality with the lions. And the lions replied, "Your words, O hares, are good, but they lack both claws and teeth, such as we have." Basically, it's a tale about the unfortunate but unavoidable axiom that might makes right. Equality is just some fancy jive talk if you can't back it up with brute force. What we have here is a curious inversion of that tale, because we're living in Zootopia right now, where the rabbits are in charge of the lions, and the only way it works is because the rabbits know everything about the lions, and the lions know nothing about the rabbits. If a lion so much as says boo to a goose, the whole world collapses on its fainting couch over this poor goose who's been traumatized by this racist lion who deigned to utter the B word. Meanwhile, the rabbits are arresting 12,000 lions every year for the crime of saying boo. And here we are in the year of our Lord 2026. An adolescent lion named Nick Shirley has had the audacity to say boo to a goose. And in doing so, he has said to the rabbits what the rabbits have been saying to us for years. If you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear. And it's as though he's stomping his back foot on the ground to see how many worms crawl out of the dirt for fear of drowning. And wouldn't you know it, they're starting to crawl out. And as the worms crawl out, exposing themselves to all the hawks and all the burrowing insectivores, they protest. We have nothing to hide. But while we're here, we're going to insist that you never again demand transparency from the worms or the rabbits the way we demand transparency from the lions. How could we possibly have anything to hide? We're just worms, and they're just rabbits. Who could possibly imagine a society so ridiculously backwards that the worms and the rabbits are in charge of the lions? No, no. You must let us operate entirely in secret, while we may observe everything you do. And we're really hoping we're still able to brainwash enough lions into defending us. The metaphors may seem like they're getting a little bit mixed, folks, but it's all there. It's all there when you examine it. We are beyond Animal Farm at this point. The idea of horses and dogs being led by pigs is a gross understatement at this point. We became a society of lions led by sheep, but a hop, skip, and a jump down the line. And at this point, we're a society of lions led not just by rabbits, not just even by worms, but by microscopic parasites. And all we have to do to take the power back is acknowledge that we are lions and that they are basically nothing. We have antibiotics now. Let us use them. And in the meantime, let us mercilessly tear off the heads of these useless, bleating herbivores who never even had any business being in charge. Deus Vod! This parable is a work of fiction, and any resemblance to persons living or dead is purely coincidental.
Okay, Hannah.
So there's an interesting thing I noticed over the last couple of years. A lot of entertainment media has had some delay in getting from writer and studio to television or theater or internet or whatever they were planning on doing with it. But I've noticed multiple things coming out in the last year that attempt to eclipse the problems that have occurred with this mass migration to the United States. And in particular, they've attempted to, and I'm saying this deliberately, whitewash the relationship between the Somali population and the local populations and the Arab population and the local populations. The Arab and Somali populations that have entered the country en masse as refugees, and the local populations that they have been dumped on. And by dumped on, I mean they've been suddenly dropped into neighborhoods where they've doubled the population of the neighborhood or tripled the population of the neighborhood. And then the government has paid people who own apartment complexes and houses for rent and stuff like that to evict their existing renters, their existing clients, and take in these refugees. And of course, the local landlords see that they're going to get 3 to 5 times as much money for rent from the government for these refugees, and so they take the deal, and suddenly now there's a big homeless population, and these people can't find any place to rent, and they have to move. And we get told that this is enriching the local communities, that now there's all this money flooding the local community, so the businesses are doing well. And it's not mentioned that all of that money came from the government. No, they're working for it. No, they're taking jobs and earning a living, jobs other people won't do. Except there are people who are getting laid off to make room for them. So obviously those are not jobs other people won't do. It's that the employer discovered that they get some extra cash from the government if they employ some of these refugees that they don't get if they're employing locals. So they lay off the locals and they hire the refugees, and then the locals don't get a callback date. So yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. Whitewashing, because they are deliberately trying to make it look like the only people who are complaining are white people. But in the area where I live, a lot of the people that are losing their jobs are not white. Most of the people losing their jobs are not white. And there are businesses being opened that don't exist and don't hire anybody that are taking some of that money. And that's happening in Ohio, it's happening in Michigan, it's happening in Wisconsin, it's happening in Indiana. It's probably happening in Kentucky, but I don't know anybody in Kentucky that can tell me about it. But that's kind of the surrounding area for me. If I go across the state, I'll bet you Pennsylvania's having a big problem with this too. But I've noticed that before this made news, there were already entertainment media, like different things in place, TV shows, movies, videos on YouTube and stuff, trying to set the stage to debunk it. No, white people hate Somalians. They have these misgivings and misconceptions that all Somalians are con artists and pirates. And if they open a business, then they're competing with the locals, and the locals get mad. Nothing about the fact that the government is upending the local economy and upending essentially the local economic ecosystem by dumping a bunch of money onto one peg that weighs down the local structure, I guess you could say, and it tips the scales immensely to the degree that everyone else is thrown off balance. And so now, now we're going to get told that it's racism to complain about the fraud and to complain about the government interference in local economies, to complain about the various crimes that have been committed, and to complain about being ripped off in a number of ways. I expect everybody to call bullshit on that. It is your job to call bullshit on that, because you know that, first of all, the majority of people losing their jobs are men. Second of all, the majority of people losing their jobs are not white. They're not being kicked out. They're not being replaced. It's Americans who are non-white who are being kicked out of jobs that are corporate run. Right? There are probably some white people as well, but it's not a racial issue. It's not white versus black when you have black people losing their jobs to other black people. So you can't accuse the people losing their jobs of complaining because they're racist against their own color. You can't accuse people losing their homes of complaining because they're racist against their own skin color. There obviously is another reason why they're upset about being homeless. It might be the fact that people don't like to be homeless.
It's a wild idea.
Yeah. And you know, the really dumb thing about the childcare scam is you could actually make plenty of money having a daycare. It's your ability to charge for that and actually work with the kids. You have one daycare worker per a certain number of kids. I think it's like 1 to 4. But that government funding would go to pay part of your payroll. You would have people recommending you if you did a good job. Parents that have 2-income families seem to be pretty desperate for daycare, in fact. So this idea that they have to do this fraudulent, well, we're going to say we have a business, but we don't actually, to make money. They're not very smart pirates. I will say that. But it's pretty obvious from the evidence that they are, at least the ones that are doing that, they are pirates. They're land pirates.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a single TV show or movie that's going to convince people that they're not. But it sure is interesting that they spent Hollywood and Netflix and every other organization that makes films of any type, TV, movies, animation, spent the last like 5 to 10 years preparing to tell people you shouldn't be judging Arabs and Somalis that are coming into your community as refugees. It seems odd that they would be thinking about that for that long before people started to complain. There seems like there should be some underlying cause, underlying reason. I know there's a word for it. When a large group of people plans something nefarious. But I suppose we won't use that term here. It's just very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that makes you go,
Yeah, well, you're not supposed to be noticing that much, because then we can dismiss you as a crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
But
nobody ever conspires.
No.
It's an impossibility.
Oh,
yeah,
you
there's no
said it.
such thing. It's no such
You
thing.
said the word.
The
word of the day.
I should get that as a soundboard sound.
Oh my god.
The word of the secret word. I should get. Yeah, I gotta find that.
Yeah.
Where everybody screams. Okay, so is there anything else, Hannah, that you wanted to say?
That's it for me.
All right. So this was just kind of like a little one. I mean, again, I don't know. We got to wait and see if we learn anything. But I do think it's worth bringing up. Like, it's how you know you have cockroaches when you turn a light on and you see them scatter. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this looks like a scattering cockroach situation as somebody who grew up around cockroaches. When I was a kid, it was really bad. It was really infested, but we couldn't do anything about it because we lived in a slum. So... but, you know how to live with them and you know how to look for them. It's just like, oh, if you have mice, how do you know you have mice? Oh, you have, like, little poops in the pantry corner, So, anyway, I thought it was interesting to bring up.
It's so difficult to describe this without bringing up vermin of some sort.
Yes, vermin, yes. All right, well, anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Am I reading into this too much? Do you think there's some substance here? Of course, only time will tell, as with a lot of these stories. We're not really going to know anything until we know something. But let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I do have a super chow, and then I'm going to follow up with a story that's very closely related to the first story. So it's almost like buttresses off of it. It's connected to it, you know. Richard Bier, thank you, Richard, gives us $5 super chow and says, when my father's family immigrated from post-Second World War Germany, after a certain period of time, everyone who came as a group were spread out across the country so as to not create with German enclaves. So, yeah. And I think there's good reason to do that, to be suspicious. But now that we've plastered anything that... Well, first of all, you can still do that to Germans, I'm sure, because they're white. But if you do that to any other group that is considered protected, they'll call you racist. And this is why, in my opinion, we have to just, like, we have to acknowledge that racism is not a term that describes a behavior or an activity or even an attitude. It is a political tool to control you. You have to reject it outright. You know what you are, and nobody else can tell you what you are. Okay? So I say it doesn't exist, and all the isms are just tools of control. Misogyny, sexism, racism, homophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, all of it. It's all just tools to control you, and you can't even use misandry in that way. So when I say misandry, I use it as a term that describes something, but I'm not using it as a tool to control behavior or take control over some kind of property or some kind of institution, because you can't. It doesn't work. And this is actually probably okay, because I wouldn't want it to be something that you could exploit in that way, but I don't think it could, because it's men. And, you know, if anything, men are in the fortunate position of not being able to use these tools because it would only weaken them further. So, but anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Okay, we're going to move on to the next story. All right, so Tim Walz.
Look at that. Look at him.
I know.
Look at it.
Hey, he can be a knucklehead sometimes. So,
I mean, you look at his face and you think, how could this poor bastard ever be a criminal?
Yeah.
It looks like we just found out where the thermometer's about to go.
but no, this is where I part company from all those physiognomy checks, because they would look at this guy and go, oh, look at this poor victim. Look at his face. He couldn't possibly be a fucking criminal of epic proportions. Yeah, no, this is how they pull the wool over your eyes, because they get people who look like victims to act like people who victimize you. I just look at his face.
Yeah.
Look at how helpless he seems, and then realize that. This is also counterintuitive. He looks like a victim of life, but he's not. He's a perpetrator.
Oh, of course. So on January 5th, yesterday, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, a Democrat and former 2024 vice presidential candidate, announced he would not seek re-election for a third term in the upcoming gubernatorial race. Walz, who had initially declared his candidacy in September of 2025, reversed course amid intense scrutiny over his administration's handling of a massive welfare and child care fraud scandal involving hundreds of millions, but more likely close to billions, in misappropriated funds from federal programs. In his statement and a brief news conference, Walz emphasized the need to focus fully on governing and combating the fraud, stating that campaigning would divert attention from defending Minnesotans against criminals who prey on our generosity and the cynics who prey on our differences. He expressed no regret, framing the decision as prioritizing the state's challenges over personal political ambitions. The announcement has reshaped Minnesota's political landscape, with U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar, who's also pretty awful, by the way, Democrat of Minnesota, reportedly considering a run for governor after meeting with Walz. Republicans celebrated this move, tying it directly to the fraud controversy. I mean, the timing is just obvious, and I have a clip to play after this. Amplified by President Trump and congressional investigations, while Democrats praised Walz's service and expressed confidence in holding the seat. Coach. The scandal involving allegations of organized fraud, primarily in Medicaid and child care programs, continues to draw federal probes, with Walz's administration defending its reforms, even as critics demand further accountability. Walz will remain in office until his term ends in early January 2027. So he's going to be there for the remainder of the year. And he is also being investigated by the DOJ for, I guess, his potential involvement in this scandal. Here's a clip of him taking accountability.
State, there's full accountability for everybody, because I buck stops with me. I'm accountable for this. And because of that accountability, I'm not running for office again. But I have a year to continue to improve on a record that I think will stand up against anybody's, a record that has made Minnesota better. Our state, there's full accountability.
Oh, that was the end of the clip. Sorry. All right. So I think that's everything I got.
I'm
so
totally accountable, but I did a good job. I'm not admitting I did a bad job.
I did this. Anyway, so go ahead and give us your thoughts then. Anybody?
Mike, do you want to go first?
I'm happy to bring up the rear on this one if you just jumping at the bit.
So he proves he doesn't know what accountability is. It's nice that we caught this guy. Okay, it's nice. It's great that he's stepping down from office and everything. I'm pleased with that. But now what are we gonna do about all the other roaches? That's the Democrat Party. This guy is
now we know we have roaches, or at least the populace knows. That's the thing.
We had roaches.
Well,
for 20 years at least.
No, I know we've got roaches, and they're not just roaches with D's next to their name. They're roaches with R's next to their name too. But my point is that I think that the normies are seeing
figure
this.
It out.
Yes, no, they're seeing it. It's
the thing that bothers me is this. All right, there are roaches with each party behind their name, but the Democrat Party, there aren't maybe a handful, 5 people in office that don't strike me as one of the roaches. Mm-hmm. Where the Republican Party, there's a few more, and like I've said before, it's great that we're getting a few of these roaches, but what really needs to happen is young men start looking at your local structure. Run for office, get involved. If you can't run for office, start going into your local offices and seeing if there is some other role that you can fill. And if you decide later on that you want to run for a higher office, you still have something on your resume. Getting involved with any kind of community, local government effort, local government initiative. And it really does specifically need to be young men. It's not that women can't do this. They won't. And the reason they won't is because the moment they start to develop any level of power, then they start falling back on those safety nets. And it's got to be men that start pushing these people out of office, getting enough experience to primary your state level senators and congressmen, getting enough to primary your county commissioners, getting enough to primary even your federal level senators and congressmen and your governors. This is important, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later. The more career politicians, the more roaches are allowed to stay in office, the worse the country's going to be. And this is not rare. This is how it's done. This guy just got caught. He's a little bit dumber than the other roaches, but they're all the same. And we've known it for more than 20 years. We've known it for way longer than that. People knew when Bill Clinton ran for president that in Arkansas as governor and prior to becoming governor, he was essentially a mob boss in politics in Arkansas.
Yeah.
There wasn't any difference between his political career and the career of a mafia don. And it may be a little bit more difficulty tracing deaths to the individual who called in the hit. But aside from that, it was very well known. It wasn't a surprise when people were told about it. Everybody's like, well, we know that. That's politics as usual, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's common practice. Nobody cared. People have to care about that. If you don't, this is what you get. You get politicians like this. I'm not shocked or surprised. I'm just disappointed that people think that, oh, we got him. Yeah. But like I said, what are you going to do about the rest of the roaches?
I have some things to add to this story as well that I forgot to mention. This is not about Tim Walz per se, but about the scandal more broadly. So here's another roach. According to this account called Mario Naufal, who does a lot of breaking news stories on X, he says, HHS confirms Somalia's UN ambassador. So the UN ambassador of Somalia was involved in the healthcare company convicted of Medicaid fraud. It is not a rumor, it is confirmed. The Department of Health and Human Services has verified reporting that I'm going to butcher this. Abukar Dahir Osman, Somalia's ambassador to the United Nations, was involved in a healthcare company convicted of medical fraud. His company's MPI appears on the HHS Office of Inspector General exclusion list under Code 1128A1, meaning conviction of program-related crimes with a mandatory minimum 5-year exclusion from Medicare and Medicaid. This is the same man who assumed the rotating presidency of the UN Security Council on January 1st. He now has authority to set the global agenda, oversee international peacekeeping operations, and authorize UN military actions. So that was one thing I wanted to point out, and I'll share it with you guys. This is the post, and this is the gentleman we're talking about. And then we also have, and I just think this is wild, it's only a minute long, but there's a TikTok video of a woman, a feminist, who is making the case that this exposure of this scheme to steal billions of dollars, I'm just going to go with billions because we don't know how much, but we know it's hundreds of millions at least, is actually going to be bad because it affects women. So let me just show you the clip. It's only a minute long, and then I'll let you guys respond to it because I want to add this on. This is important context, though. Well, you guys can't hear this right now, can you? Hold on a second. I gotta unshare and then reshare again, so. This is a glitch that happens sometimes. I apologize. Alright. Well, now let's see if it plays.
To end federal funding to childcare will force women to give abusive men access to their children. Women who leave abusive marriages are less likely to file for child support when they have access to childcare and income, because the courts, even in cases where it's been proven that that man has been violent towards the woman, will force her to give that man access to her children if she wants the child support. And women will tell you, when the man can no longer abuse the woman, they will use the children to get to her and to punish her. And women would rather take care of themselves and their children than to put their kids in harm's way. So when daycare centers have to close because they cut federal funding off, you're making women choose between feeding their children and keeping them safe. This was all written down in Project 2025, and J.D. Vance has verbalized it over and over again. Make no mistake, they want women dependent on men. They want us out of the workforce, and they want us quiet.
I just want to point out before you respond, she's saying that there are childcare facilities, which, by the way, have no children in them because they're not being used as childcare, but somehow those are being used to force women to give custody of the children that don't exist because they're not going to the childcare centers To men, okay, but to their men
What,
who are
what
obviously
it sounds
violent.
like she's saying there is that this controversy might lead to an end to federal funding for child care for single mothers.
Yeah.
Which, and she thinks that all of the children that, if you send your children to daycare because you work as a mom, it's because you're an abused woman who's divorced from her abuser, and you're sending your children to daycare for that reason. She's basically saying that if those daycare centers close, like those are the only way that women who have left abusive marriages can work, can have their children at daycare and work, which indicates that women are not earning enough money on their own to support their household. But they do expect the ex-husband to earn enough money to support his household and partially support her household. I think that's the expectation. But yet women work just as hard as men do, right? So these arguments that feminists make, they can't seem to stay on the same side of the argument depending on which subject they're arguing about, right? Women and men are equally strong, but it's bad when a man hits a woman, and it's not bad when a woman hits a man. If a woman hits a man and he hits her back, he's the abuser. But if a man hits a woman and she kills him, she's an innocent victim who was just trying to escape her abuser. They don't make any sense. And when you look at the numbers on domestic violence, out of all domestic violence, 13% is the stereotypical male abuser that goes after a female victim without her being violent first or her returning violence. And the rest is either female perpetrated, where 13% is the male engaging that behavior. It's like 26% that's the female engaging in that same behavior, attacking the male in the relationship, and he doesn't retaliate and hasn't done anything to her. And of the rest, it's two-way violence. That's associated with more violence from women than from men, meaning that there are instances where the woman is initiating and the man is still not defending himself. So it's quite an interesting situation where here you have all of this female perpetrated violence, but she's worried about women not being able to dump their kids into a daycare program because, maybe a few of those mothers are women who have left an abusive relationship and can't fail to support their house, as dramatically with their job if they can't have the job because they can't get daycare for free from the government, which again, like I said, that's a failure. You're not supporting your house if somebody else is paying for your daycare. If you're getting a stipend from the government, your house is being supported by strangers, and your income from your job is not paying all of your bills because your daycare is one of your bills. And so it really pisses me off to hear this. It really does. The other thing is there are organizations in every big city and in many, many small towns in every county in the United States that take money from the government, and they also get donations from the local population, often after guilt tripping people. This is happening in your community and you're not doing anything about it. And they demonize men and they victimize women. They get all kinds of cash to help women move on from domestic relationships that involve violence. And they specifically serve women. They don't necessarily serve men. When they do claim to serve men, it's almost always as perpetrators, not as victims of domestic violence, despite the fact that most domestic violence is female initiated. And yet, we're supposed to believe there's no help for women who are victims of domestic violence, who want to get jobs and pay some of their bills, and therefore need to put their kids in daycare from any of these places. They won't do anything to help the woman after she has left her husband or her boyfriend or whatever live-in partner. It's all up to the federal government now. Right? I'm calling bullshit. Like, these women don't network with each other when they live in these places, because they do provide housing, and actually they provide housing for women and their children. So it is kind of interesting that somehow these women go through these centers and they have no connection to anybody who can watch their kids while they're at work. And yeah, last but not least, sending them to the daycare that doesn't actually exist is kind of dangerous for the child. Where, in the meantime, if the abuser was actually the mother and she's not in the home to attack the father and create a situation where he might defend himself and then get in trouble for it, I'd say the kids are probably pretty safe with him.
Yeah. All right, Mike. It's all yours.
While we're still looking at Tim Walz's spanked goblin face, I would remind us that we must be grateful for small mercies, folks. As fucked up as this situation seems, just imagine if we lived in the timeline in which the 2024 election was won by the Harris-Walz ticket. Aside from the pan-dimensional nightmare of other various catastrophes we'd already be living through, this would not be a story about Tim Walz stepping down. It would not be a story at all. Tim Walz would continue to fail upwards, while Nick Shirley, God bless his cotton socks, would be dead, as would anyone else who tried to expose the widespread criminal gutting of America's resources. And it wouldn't just be in Minnesota. Well, it's already not just in Minnesota. It's in Washington State, as we learned in the first story, and a whole bunch of other states. And we'll soon see the worms surfacing and the cockroaches scattering across the country. But those worms wouldn't be surfacing if the Harris-Walz ticket was in charge. They'd continue to be hiding in the ground, safely ensconced in the pile of shit they've made their home for the last generation or two or three, or God knows what else. I know it seems like such a cheap trick to say, well, things could be worse, but they could. Right now, everyone's arguing about whether capturing Maduro was the right thing to do. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I'm glad we can have that conversation honestly and frankly and out in the open. But it has to be said, if the Democrats were still in charge, Maduro would still be in charge. The Democrats would make no effort to oust him, because that would give people the impression that communist dictators can be ousted. And the Democrats don't want that seed being planted in anyone's mind. And they sure as fuck don't want the oil. The Democrats are happy to let that oil sit in the ground forever while they throw 1 million men into Ukraine and watch them burn so they can continue to make a profit from whatever fungible bullshit they're laundering through that pile of steaming corruption. I didn't have much to say about this one. I'm just taking this opportunity to transition it into the next story. And let's be honest, it's the big one.
Yeah.
In summary, fuck Tim Walz and fuck Nicolas Maduro, because they're basically the same person.
Yes.
Behold the segue. All
right. But first, let us know what you guys think about this one in this comment section. We'll see. Tim Walz says he's going to try and do as much as he can, essentially to protect his legacy in the year that he has remaining. But but basically he's out. He's not running again unless he changes his mind. So went from nearly the vice president to gone. So I'll take it. All right, Great Indoors gave us a super chat for $5. Thank you, Great Indoors, and says, I thought it was very considerate of Trump to divert the heat that was on the Democrats regarding the Somali daycare fraud case by removing the illegitimate leader of Venezuela in honor of January 6th. Alas, the Democrats just bust in some communists who have declared that there is nothing much to see behind the tinted windows of Maduro's socialist democracy. All right, thank you for that. Appreciate it. And then I got one from Meredith G, who gives us $5 and says, HBR News 534, for those who don't know what happened to Walz, the Democrat Party told him to step down so they could hold governor's mansion. He will be the one to take the fall to protect all the other roaches. Yeah, that's what I figured. I think that's usually how it goes. Somebody has to take the fall so that the investigation would, supposedly stop there. But what we have to do is we have to continue to push for more exposure. And I think we're going to get that. I think, the citizen journalist thing is really ramping up everywhere. And there's actually more than just the one kid in Minnesota as well. A lot of other people have also gone, like somebody else discovered last week when we were covering the Leering Center, that they were correcting the spelling on that sign, which suggests, by the way, that they plan on trying to stay for as long as they can. But we'll see what happens. So, but thank you for that, Meredith. All right, so we're going to move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. So, let me see. How do I start this? Let's just start with this video. And I'll just read this. I'm going to show you guys a few videos, and then we'll talk about it. So, the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on January 3rd, 2026, marked a dramatic escalation in U.S.-Venezuela relations, culminating months of planning under the Trump administration. The operation began with U.S. military strikes across Caracas, involving special forces and air support from 150 jets, leading to Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, being seized from their compound at approximately 2:01 a.m. local time. They were swiftly transported aboard the USS Iwo Jima and flown to New York to face federal charges. Preceding events included Maduro's New Year's Day interview on Venezuelan state television, where he expressed openness to U.S. negotiations on drug trafficking, but accused Washington of seeking regime change and access to oil reserves. Of course, he was, setting the stage for when this happens. Trump had voiced internal reservations, but approved the mission days before Christmas, with final authorization given on the evening of January 3rd from Mar-a-Lago. This followed years of U.S. indictments against Maduro. So we've been indicting him for years, leading up to this. Dating back to 2020, amid ongoing pressure to curb drug trafficking and promote democracy. Remind me, who was president in 2020 when we did this? And after that, the legal pretext for the operation centered on a long-standing U.S. federal indictment accusing Maduro of narco-terrorism, cocaine transportation, and leading the Cartel de las Soles, framing him not as a legitimate head of state, but as an indicted criminal. The Trump administration justified the action under Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, asserting presidential authority as commander-in-chief for limited military operations without congressional approval, as it was not deemed a prolonged war or invasion, which it wasn't, because it was done and dusted that night. Critics, however, argue it violated international law, including the UN Charter and Venezuelan sovereignty, with no clear justification for the abduction or strikes. The operation was described as a regime change effort, with Trump announcing U.S. intent to administer Venezuela temporarily until a transition could occur. Reactions were sharply divided. Republicans administration officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Attorney General Pam Bondi, celebrated it as a bold enforcement of justice against a corrupt regime. Democrats condemned the move, of course, as reckless, risking broader conflict and undermining self-determination. Internationally, allies like Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba denounced it as a violation of sovereignty. Interesting, because they were all trying to get at the same stuff in Venezuela. They were there all the time. All those countries. Fearing it sets a precedent for U.S. interventions elsewhere. Global observers expressed concerns over the lack of legal clarity and potential for prolonged U.S. involvement in Venezuela's affairs. And I want to show you guys something interesting, too. In New York City, specifically, communists took to the streets. This is not the communists. These are Venezuelans. To share their thoughts, okay? And let me see if I can find the clip. Well, there was a riots and protests. But let's look at, this is a video of Venezuelans when they learn the news. So let's listen to this.
Ole, 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 ola. Le, ole, 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 ola, y golpe. Ay, Julián, 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 no sé. Repícame los tambores que me los quiero aprender, golpe. Juana Polinaria, la de Choroní, la mandé a buscar y no quiso venir, golpe.
Okay. So
They seem upset.
they're absolutely broken up by this
terrible
back to
morning
formula
going on.
neocon garbage that's gonna just be prolonged for decades, just like Iraq. No, but she can stay if she wants. I mean, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, here and then on the other side of that, we have New York liberals clashing with anti-Maduro Venezuelans. So you had pro-Maduros who are local libs in New York, and they clash with Venezuelans who, by the way, they were here, but they really wanted to go back home. And this looks like an opportunity for them to do so. But let's play this one.
Venezuela, es Venezuela. Y esa bandera no es de ellos, esa bandera es de nosotros, esa bandera no es de ellos.
Venezuela, yo, we are Venezuela. You are for my country. What part of Venezuela you are? 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 You are not for my country. You not for my country. You are not for my country. You are not for my country.
No volverá.
We want justice, you say how?
Release Maduro right now.
Release Maduro right now.
Prepagados.
Hay solo de bicho, hija de puta, perra, nigger.
Whoa, buddy, whoa. What did he say? I think that was Spanish. I'm just going to say that was Spanish.
They're finished.
Not to us, out of people that
Out of Gaza, out of Venezuela,
everything that's built by
out of Venezuela, nigger, africana, country.
Oh yeah, he's definitely speaking some interesting. That's French.
I love the Marine. God bless God bless America. You support his imprisonment. Yeah.
La mejor operación quirúrgica que necesitaba el pueblo venezolano. No importa, no me importa eso.
All right, I'm not gonna play the whole thing. It goes on for like a couple minutes, but you see the communists who are not Venezuelans, they are protecting Maduro, right? They are protecting him because he was their best example, at least in their mind, of a real communist like country, right? And it failed. I mean, the people of Venezuela were like eating zoo animals because they were so hungry. And
Yeah, now that when we say that, there's something more people need to understand about Venezuela, right? It's not some backwater nation with no reason to have wealth, right? It's not just some shithole that you can't find any way to earn money there.
well, hold on, Hannah. I got more clips to share.
I know.
This
This is important though, because people hear this, they're eating zoo animals, and it's like, oh yeah, but South America. No, they have massive resources. massive. They have
Yeah,
not
they're
just
sitting
oil,
on all kinds of minerals and
rare
everything.
earth minerals. Yep, they have all kinds of resources there, and it should have been one of the wealthiest nations in the world, and they are eating zoo animals.
Yeah.
So it's not just, oh, these people are poor. These people have every reason in the world why they should be wealthier even than the United States. And they're eating zoo animals.
Yep. Okay, so this goes on, and I have another clip. Here's some of the feminists online. Here's one of them who was very angry about this.
Trump said the United States will be running Venezuela. Whoa, a colony. Whoa, imperialism. All for what? So a fucking multinational corporation can get profit. Whoa! Trump said the United...
Not true.
She sounds like a Muppet.
Yeah. So, let me see. I thought I had like one
She kind
more.
of looks like a Muppet too.
She totally does. All right, I have
An
one more
import
here.
of Muppets. I love Muppets. How dare you?
Yeah, I think Muppets are cute. Here's another
Muppets
one.
are comical.
Venezuelan cheering right now. You do not want to be controlled by the United States. They will drain you of all your resources and then leave you in a worse state than you are right now. We're also under a dictatorship, and now we are in charge of your country. United States citizens don't even want to...
Does she not understand that this is exactly what the communists just did
Yeah,
to Venezuela?
Right. No, the communists didn't do that. That never happens, Hannah.
Only
Does she think that
over your country?
What do they think she had? What does she think they have to lose now?
Yeah.
They're zoo animals?
Look, the problem is that these people cannot. They don't know. They just can't be wrong. That's it. They just can't be wrong. They can't step back and say, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Instead, they are speaking for the people who want to go home and they want their country back. And look, it living under Maduro was awful. Period. And us stepping in. And the truth is, from before you guys get into it, from an American perspective, okay, or at least from an America First perspective, it was important that we control, or at least be like in charge of the Western Hemisphere, because we are the superpower here, and that's what the purpose of it was. Like it or not, the Venezuelans love it. So I don't know how you guys have a problem with it, right? There are people who are separated from their families, and a lot of them have come to this country. They want to go back. And that's that. If you create a good country for them to go back to, they'll do so gladly. So Fishy Handle says, agreed as a Venezuelan. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, but the communists can go. Like that. All of this is fine. We'll take the oil. Yes, we'll take that. But I don't think that's what this is all about. But we'll take it. Sure. I mean, whatever. What are you gonna do? Like, that's the thing, too. This is, like, they're like, oh, he violated UN law. Fuck the UN. Fuck them. A law doesn't mean shit if you can't enforce it.
Been saying for quite a while now that UN needs to be defunded. The United States needs to...
We need to stop giving them money.
the UN.
Yep. Just fuck those people, because they don't do anything. Literally, one of their own members is caught in this, essentially this, rip-off scandal that's stealing billions of dollars of money for so-called childcare. One of the people from the UN. If there's like any reason for us to leave, that's it. Okay. So yeah, we're not prolonging anything.
I mean, the UN was heavily involved in the U.S. AIDS, the worldwide U.S. AIDS infection, which, by the way, heavily affected Venezuela. So this was not. Like, you come full circle here, that money laundering, that's why, by the way, other nations are upset with the United States right now. They don't care who's in charge of the country, except that there might be someone in office after all of this has settled, after the dust has settled, that won't let them continue to rip off Venezuela and launder money.
I would like to see multiple sides of the controversy. because when you interview Americans, half of them will say, yeah, we're in favor of this, and half of them will say, well, not. But when you interview Venezuelans, it seems everyone who's been interviewed on video, all of them will be like, this is awesome, thank fuck, la la la, thank fuck that Maduro's finally been put out of commission. Like, I'm sure there are some Venezuelans who will be like, boo, we loved Maduro, how dare you do this to us? But no one's been able to find those people and film them saying their thing. And I'm sure they do exist. Even if they're not being paid by the fucking Venezuelan Maduro government to say these things, I'm sure some of them are out there, but no one's been able to find them. Every time someone finds and interviews and films Venezuelans, all of them, without exception, like 100% of them are like, this is fucking awesome. Thank you, God. Thank you, Trump. Thank you, U.S. administration. And I'm like, all right, well, this does kind of skew our interpretation of what just happened. This seems like a good time to remind everyone that we should always be skeptical of whatever narrative is being pushed. What we're being told is that Maduro was captured in the space of about 3 hours using only a squadron of helicopters, and no American lives were lost. Now, I'm not sure if it's true that no American lives were lost. I find it hard to believe that a military base, the biggest military base in Venezuela, was infiltrated in and out in a completely flawless victory. But I am willing to believe
zero damage run any percentage.
I'm willing to believe that Maduro was indeed captured, and not just because of the pictures we've seen along the way of Maduro looking like Dr. What's his name?
Yeah.
Pictures that can be fabricated. I believe it because if it wasn't true, if Maduro was still sitting pretty in Caracas in his military base, he right now he would be broadcasting from that location, bragging as he likes to, and going, lol, y'all didn't get to me, you cowards. Watch me eat an extra large enchilada while my people continue to eat zoo animals. Rah rah.
Well, they're out of zoo. They're out of zoo animals, so their money is just flying around. Was just flying around in the streets because it's worth nothing.
Yeah, none of that happened, nor has any mass destruction taken place before or after. So I'm reasonably confident that yes, a tin pot dictator has indeed been ousted from his ill-gotten throne without a war taking place. And that's, I mean, by any stretch of the imagination, this is a good thing. If only it was that easy with Saddam Hussein. If only it was that easy with Osama bin Laden. I guess the difference is that Muslims will readily rally around their leader, whereas communists will not. I mean, maybe it's because communist leaders tend to strip their own countries down to a feeble skeleton that can barely lift an arm, whereas Muslims can always retreat to impenetrable mountains, safe in the knowledge that God is on their side. But communists don't have a God on their side. It's much like the Vietnamese can retreat into the jungle, safe in the knowledge that they have the power of their ancestors on their side, because that's what they worship. People who believe in something eternal and they have access to a terrain on hard mode, like mountains or jungles. Such a people can and will remain indomitable. That's something on which communists cannot rely. Communism is like feminism. It only happens when rich cunts can afford it for whatever reason. It happens when a nation has access to resources, but they don't have a connection to an ancestral or spiritual anchor. They find a shitload of oil, and then they go, well, we're rich now. We don't need anything else. We have money. Pardon. Similar thing going on in Canada, by the way. It's the double-edged sword of finding a shitload of oil. It's like winning the lottery. Far too many people, when they win the lottery, they have no idea how to manage their finances. So if they spend everything, then they spend more than they have, then they lose everything, and then they wind up poorer and unhappier than they were before they won the lottery. Same thing in Saudi Arabia, of course, though their fate hasn't manifested yet. They and their neighboring nations are still riding high on their gains, and they're building the tallest buildings ever, just for the sake of building the tallest buildings ever. And like the Tower of Babel, like the Colossus of Rhodes, collapse is inevitable. There is a rude awakening in the future for all of these countries. If you spend your fortune on extravagance, you're going to feel a hell of a burn when your future runs dry. Pardon. But Venezuela is a different story. They burned themselves out long before they were even able to extract all the oil, because they weren't even able to build a Colossus. It's like someone who won the lottery, but they couldn't figure out how to withdraw more than 1,000 bolivar a day. So they just used their 1,000 bolivar daily allowance to go towards Maduro's daily intake of enchiladas and fucking cocaine or whatever. So it does kind of make sense for the Trump administration to bust on in there and go, look, you guys are sitting on a gold mine, and all you're doing is scraping off a few leaves of gold and feeding it to this fat fuck for no reason. Would you like it if we marched on in there and got rid of this fat fuck and started putting all of this gold to good use? Okay, good. By the way, we're going to keep most of the gold for ourselves. This is an accurate analogy, since the Venezuelan people were not asked. There were no negotiations. Trump just busted on in there and went, okay, here's what we're going to do. You want your tin pot dictator ousted, and we want your oil. So we're going to oust your tin pot dictator, and we're going to drill your oil, that oil that you weren't even drilling because you didn't have the technology and your retarded fat dictator couldn't figure it out. I'm sorry that we couldn't actually conduct these negotiations because Maduro wouldn't have allowed it, nor would the US Congress. So we're just like, fuck it. We're America. We're a geopolitical powerhouse, and we can do what the fuck we like. So we're just going to go ahead with this plan. We hope you agree. Lo and behold, the Venezuelan people do agree. They're singing and dancing in the streets. They don't even care what may or may not happen to the oil. After all, the Maduro regime wasn't even drilling the fucking oil in the first place. And so the Venezuelan people are just delighted that the mad bastards who dragged them into hyperinflation and poverty are no longer doing that. So they're like, yeah, no, fuck it, take the oil. Take all of the fucking oil. We're just sick of eating zoo animals. Have you ever tasted armadillo? It's fucking gross. It's like eating a gym sock in a Kevlar vest. This fucking sucks. And it's not as though the USA is going to drill the oil and keep the profits all for itself. They're going to strike a deal where they divide the profits amongst each other. Venezuela will benefit, the USA will benefit, and the whole world will benefit from having access to the world's largest oil reserves. And everyone will be better off, at least until that shit runs out, and we'll have to look somewhere else. Hopefully, hopefully someone's going to figure out how to make fuel in a sustainable way in the meantime. But until then, Let's just get the fucking oil. Let's get all the oil we can find rather than just leaving it festering uselessly under communist countries who can't even figure out how to fucking extract it. We're all out here dooming out about what nightmare scenarios might happen in the near future when the oil runs out. But as long as we're leaving communists in charge, that nightmare scenario is going to happen before the oil runs out. To repeat, that's what happened in Venezuela. If we left Venezuela to its own devices, it would have become a Mad Max post-apocalyptic hellscape in a world with no access to oil, while sitting on top of the world's largest oil reserves. And that oil would have gone fucking nowhere. It just would have sat there doing nothing. There is a poetic truth to this scenario that's just as daunting as the literal geopolitical truth. And it's hard to really get your head around because people are stupid. Far too many people are far too fucking stupid. And I know this is an unpopular opinion, but maybe stupid people need to be ousted and kidnapped and shoved into a goddamn oubliette so that the intelligent people can actually figure out how we take this type 0 civilization and evolve it into a type 1 civilization where we can use the oil to create something better than oil. Elon, mate, you've been weirdly silent on this topic. Get your ass on in here and figure out how to make artificial oil. Maybe AI can help you figure out how to do that. You have about 100 years before the dunderheaded fucking communists waste the entire oil reserves on petroleum-based hair dye products so that these fucking whores could give themselves blue hair. This rant did not go where I expected it to go, but yeah, I should point out that I really hope this endeavor we're talking about does not result in another forever war. And you know, it might, it might, but I'm sorry to white pill, but I don't think it will. As long as we can admit that it is about oil and not about defending democracy or some bullshit yarn about weapons of mass destruction, I think we'll be a lot better off than we were when it was assumed that those lies would work. It's not about democracy. It's not about the war on terror. It's not about the nuclear facilities or whatever the fuck Israel would have us believe. It's about oil. It was always about oil. And to be honest, that's fine. As long as we can at least get on the same page. And I will drink to that. I will drink oil if I must.
Oh, don't do that. I mean, unless it's like
as long as it's
olive
not
oil.
as long as it's not seed oil.
Coconut oil, but not seed oil. Yes.
Do not get me started on seed oil.
RDJ will come for you if you do that.
It's kind of difficult to actually say that it is about oil because it's the possibility of attacking for that reason existed during Trump's first 4 years, and it didn't happen. But and in fact, he sat on this until we had ship after ship of poison heading our way. So it's not exactly a cut and dried. It's not as cut and dried even as the true story of the wars in the Middle East. We had the second largest population of illegal immigrants coming into the United States came from Venezuela. We had terrorists from Venezuela coming into the United States and acting on the local populations in various cities. And we had drugs from Venezuela coming into the United States and killing people. And so I'm going to push back on the oil thing because while Venezuela does have significant resources, there are other nations with significant resources that we are leaving alone because they are not stepping on our toes. They are not poisoning our nation, and they're not sending terrorists into the country to act on local populations. So there's more going on than just who's in control of that oil.
There's also the sex trafficking too.
Yeah, there is quite a bit of sex trafficking into and out of the
cartels
United
and
States
sex trafficking. That's another thing
along that route.
that was also going
And
on. So
the really bad thing about invaders from Venezuela, like, to get here, they either have to go by boat or they have to cross through 7 countries to get here. And so the idea that they're just refugees fleeing, that everybody coming here is just refugees fleeing, it is bullshit. I know that we've had refugees from Venezuela, but there's quite a number of bad hombres. Let's go that route, that have come here from, and they have again traveled through through 7 countries to get here. When they're crossing the border, and that's the second largest population that Border Patrol has to deal with crossing the border illegally, is Venezuelans. So we're not just talking about the resources. And by the way, the resources are not just oil. You think about being able to use your computer, your phone, every item that relies on a lithium battery. Venezuela is sitting on quite a bit of lithium. So there's a few different resources that you could blame the war on if you wanted to. But I think the situation is significantly more complex than people want it to be. And it's quite a bit. It's quite a bit more. It's not cut and dried that we could just say, well, we're not doing this because we're trading human lives for oil. This involved human deaths prior to the attack, and we're talking the deaths of men that have to protect their neighborhoods from Venezuelan gang members, and men are also the hardest hit population when it comes to these drugs as well. So, yeah.
So I guess the only thing I was going to add something else to it, but I can't remember it now. So it probably wasn't that important, but I did get some super chats, and I should read those out really quick. I got a comment from Fishy Handle, he's in the vertical chat, and he sent a super chat, but he didn't send any text to go with it. So I'm going to read his comments. I'm going to read his comments.
Hype on it.
Oh, okay. So he just sent a hype gift. Yeah. Well, I know he wanted to add something. So he said, agreed as a Venezuelan. And then later he said, did you know that the USA had to confront Cuban forces that were protecting Maduro? Yeah. Venezuela has been occupied by Cuba a long time ago. I can go on and on and on. Well, that's good to know, Fishy Handle. Thank you so much for the super chat and the commentary. This is going to seem a little too soonish, I guess, but it's funny that Maduro was taken in custody and given a helicopter ride, and it didn't end in the funniest way possible. He just ended up going to his court date, but it would have been really hilarious if they, not that I'm for that.
There was a headline. I didn't read the news story because it was behind a paywall, and I didn't want to take the trouble to get around it. But the headline was that he was surprised when he got here to learn that he had rights. Yeah. He's like, this is not how, if he had, a foreign leader captured and brought to his country, that leader would not have rights.
Okay, so the other thing too, I wanted to say
we got a super chat.
Yeah, I did get a super chat. Zerank says, I heard this operation for $5. I heard this operation potentially negatively affected BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So oil might be part of the reason. Yes, maybe, but
part of the
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing
that we did this.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I know that Iran, Russia, and China were all in serious talks, and they were pressuring Maduro to give them his oil. So when Trump just went in and got him, it sent a message to those countries. And you'll know this because I know for sure Xi Jinping put out a statement condemning like Trump and like calling him all this, saying that he acted very badly, etc. But he only did that because of what Trump essentially became an obstacle to what he was doing. And we know that Brazil is also a notoriously very corrupt government since they essentially like kicked out Bolsonaro and stole the election. And I think that Maduro was also involved. Maduro's government may have been involved with the voting machine scandal or the voting machine thing that happened in 2020. So there's a lot of other factors here. But I'm sorry, but if you just think this is like George Bush neocon stuff, you're just wrong. It's not that. It looks like that, but you're traumatized by 2002. I get it. You're just traumatized by that. But like, I would say this: wait and see. The way that this went down, it was done so quickly and efficiently. I think that I think it was like who was it? The people he sent in. It was like Delta Force or something. Those guys should have live streamed it to Twitch. Like that people would totally watch that. They should have live streamed that shit to Twitch with like commentary by like, the fucking Dr. Disrespect or something. That's what I say next time you guys do. Set it up as a Twitch stream, send in Delta Force, let us watch. Send in robots and dogs or robot dogs if you guys have them. And I think it was just like, it was actually very well done, all things considered. And let's not freak out. So
well,
anyway,
the important thing to remember is that there is more going on here than people realize.
Yeah, definitely.
There's
always layers going on.
Mm-hmm. Every military action the United States has taken in the last century, there's going to be things that'll come out in the next 20 years that, people are going to be like, oh, that's why. That explains a lot. I just hope it's not in the same direction as in the past, because in the past we've discovered that our CIA has pulled a lot of shit in other countries that hasn't actually benefited anybody in the long run. But I think this kind of amounts to cleaning up some of that mess.
It also sends a warning to any other countries like Cuba. Somebody mentioned Cuba and Colombia. And our enemies, like, we're not fucking around. And it's a good way to do it because it doesn't risk that much, no casualty. Trump specifically said no casualties on our side. So
yeah,
pretty sure, they sent in Chuck Norris and he was just like roundhouse kicking all the enemies.
If there had been no casualties on the other side too, he would have said no casualties.
Yeah, he would have said no casualties, period. So there were definitely casualties on the other side, but it was minimal damage and it was in and out. It wasn't like this prolonged shit that we generally are afraid of. And also all the men involved in the operation, at least from the US side, they were all voluntary. No conscriptions, no propaganda, no lies. They were like, this is what we're doing. They sent in the best. They got it done. They got out. So I think that like there could have been no better outcome, to be honest. So, and it's not like we can't live in a world where we're never doing anything because other countries are doing shit. This is why we have to like this whole thing about like the UN caring about international law. And this is like the thing that the communists online are saying he broke international law. Like seriously, other countries don't give a shit. Do you think Maduro cares about international law? Do you think that like, Putin gives a shit about that? Do you think Xi Jinping cares about that?
This is a good opportunity to address the idea of what the fuck international law even is.
Yes, yeah, sure.
Is it even a thing?
No, it's like it was like an agreement they made. It's like
a pinky swear.
A pinky swear, don't do that.
Like some bullshit like the WF or WEF or the UN can even say what international law is, and it doesn't fucking work. No. We have this when it comes to the seas. We have international waters, and there's no such thing as law when it comes to international waters. Once you get into international territory, there's literally no such thing as laws because there's no nation that can actually begin to define what those laws are. And it's the same when it comes to fucking airspace over any given country, because countries are not subject to international law, they're subject to national law. Like, where is the jurisdiction of international law? It's literally nowhere. It's made up by these bullshit organizations like the UN. Like, it's merely a suggestion.
Yeah, they're more like guidelines than actual rules, Miss Turner.
Yeah.
All right, but okay, we got to move on to the last story. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. In a small side comment of breaking news, apparently the congressional Democrats are holding a candlelit vigil to honor the victims of January 6th. This is like where we're at. Like, there's shit that's actually getting done, and then you have people still virtue signaling bullshit. So I caught just to save us some time, I got a photograph of the incident. All right, so we're gonna get into the last story here. All right, let's see. Let's get into the okay. So the last story. This one is kind of wild. Let us know what you guys think about the other one in the comments. All right.
I'm already scared.
Yeah, you should be. In the early hours, just after midnight this Monday, a man who was physically detained and arrested outside of Vice President J.D. Vance's home in Ohio. The 26-year-old, later identified as Willem Dafoe, not Willem Dafoe, was caught using a hammer to smash the windows.
I'm something of a hammer murderer myself.
That's great. The 26-year-old anyway was caught using a hammer to smash the windows of Vance's house. Dafoe had allegedly been going by the name Julia in the weeks before the attack, though police listed his name as William and his gender as male. Dafoe is the son of prominent millionaire family who donated thousands of dollars to both the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris campaigns. Dafoe graduated from high school in 2018 and enrolled into University of Cincinnati's College Conservatory of Music, where he would eventually drop out in 2020. Recently, he was enrolled in Cincinnati State Technical and Community College. In 2024, he was charged with 2 counts of vandalism at a local interior design company and was spared jail time in favor of 2 years of mandatory mental health treatment. He was later charged with trespassing at the UC Health Psychiatric and Emergency Services in 2023, but the judge in the case found him not to be mentally competent to stand trial, and the charges were dismissed. Dafoe has been charged with obstructing official business, criminal damaging or endangering, criminal trespass, and vandalism. J.D. Vance commented on the incident on Twitter saying, quote, "I appreciate everyone's well wishes about the attack on our home. As far as I can tell you, a crazy person tried to break in by hammering the windows. I'm grateful to the Secret Service and the Cincinnati police for responding quickly. Maybe he was looking for a secret door, that's all. We weren't even home as we had returned already to D.C. One request to the media: we try to protect our kids as much as possible from the realities of this life of public service. In that light, I am skeptical of the news value of plastering images of our home with holes in the windows."
Just a note. Yeah, there's a few like this around here. So for starters, you would have to be a complete nincompoop, an utter failure at life, to think that it would be a good idea to attack the home of one of the most guarded people in the world, who, if you get past any security, and you know, the best security, some of the best security in the world, by the way, Secret Service, you're still facing an ex-Marine veteran. You're still facing a Marine War veteran. And he's not an old man, right? He's pretty young as politicians go. And this dipshit looks like a stack of marshmallows with eyeballs. This is not just a Marine veteran, though. He's a Marine veteran from Ohio. Do you understand? People who grow up in Ohio, we beat the fuck out of each other for fun. That's like a game for us. Football here is a religion, right? Yeah, it's you go to the church of smashing and crashing, not the church of saying your rosary. Although there's a lot of Catholics here, but the idea that he was going to accomplish jack or shit, attacking this house, like this person needs to be committed. I feel sorry for not just the individual, but anybody who knows him. Um, it's just you have to be a special mix of crazy and stupid to go after that guy specifically with a hammer at his home. Besides the fact that you know he's not going to be there because he's in Washington D.C. Um, that's where he's supposed to be. But yeah, I cannot emphasize the level of stupid. Even the vacant stare doesn't get across the level of stupid behind doing that. I'm flabbergasted.
Well,
Like somebody did not raise this kid right.
All you need to do is do what that guy did with Paul Pelosi, and just contact him on fucking Craigslist or whatever, and be like, "Do you want some strange, Paul?" And he'll go, "Yeah, hell yeah, I want some strange. Come on down to my house. You want to bring a hammer? Yeah, that's fine. Come on down and bring a hammer." And yeah, they'll come down, and for some reason he'll fucking crack you on the head with a hammer, and then Destiny for the rest of time will be like, well, you conservatives are all assholes because you made fun of Paul Pelosi for inviting a fucking psycho with a hammer into your house, and then that psycho with a hammer fucking hit you on the head with a hammer, and therefore it's okay to assassinate Donald Trump. And I have to wonder what Destiny's going to say about this shit.
Nothing.
Yeah, is he going to be like, well, yeah, the same thing happened with JD Vance? Like some fucking piece of strange was like, he came down to his house with a hammer and tried to get into his house to fuck him in the ass, but JD Vance was like, no, thank you. I have a wife and children. I'm not interested in getting fucked in the ass by a piece of strange with a hammer. But Paul Pelosi is not quite in the same category. He was like, yeah, come on in. I'm married to Nancy Pelosi. I live a nightmare life, and I would rather get cracked in the head with a hammer than spend another day with that fucking banshee goblin child to whom I'm married to. And that's what happened to Paul Pelosi. You see the difference, Destiny? You see the difference? Paul Pelosi wanted to die because he was married to Nancy Pelosi.
Destiny's a clown.
And so he was quite happy to invite a fucking drug addict into his house to smash him in the head with a hammer. But JD Vance was not. Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference? Like your side is a bunch of degenerates who would rather get smashed in the head with a hammer than lead a goddamn country. Is any of this fucking landing yet, Destiny? You fucking... Oh, I hope this doesn't age badly when the same thing happens to Destiny. In fact, his son's probably going to do it. It's probably going to happen at the hands of his son. I hope this doesn't age badly, Destiny, when your own son hits you in the head with a hammer and then fucks you to death.
That was perfectly timed.
It was.
Jeez.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Yeah, I think if this guy had actually run into JD Vance, the headlines would be about how the vice president killed this poor, innocent, mentally ill child that was only armed with a hammer.
You know, if he got a haircut, like trimmed it really short, like a buzz cut, he could get into acting and do the live action King of the Hill as Bobby. Bobby Hill. He could be Bobby Hill.
Yeah, if Bobby Hill.
I don't know you. That's my purse. But anyway. This show was full of references. I like the Willem Dafoe one in particular. All right, so I think that's it, right? Let me just check to see if there's any super chats or anything that I missed, or super chows. Nothing is in the docket. I've read everything, and we got through all the stories. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Thank you, Hannah and Mike, for joining me and giving us your thoughts on the story. You know, the reason why I picked this one, by the way, it's not the politics of this. It's the fact that, like, we're seeing there's something that we have to have an honest conversation about the trans thing. I'm sorry, but, like, we have to stop pretending like it's normal and rare and that's all. Like, there's nothing to it. When all of these people that are confused about their sexuality, their sex, are going out and they're committing acts of violence, like, you know, or at least intending to. And sure, this one didn't get very far, but it only takes one person. I mean, just look at Charlie Kirk. Don't forget that, you know? So I'm just saying, this is, and all the school shootings that we've seen, there has to be a real honest conversation that has to happen about the transgender issue. There's something about it that no one, well, I'm gonna say nobody, but people don't want to have a frank discussion about because they don't want to hurt people's feelings. And I think that's a problem because that's kind of a feminine orientation of the world. We are like, well, what if we hurt them? We have to stop caring. These people are hurting other people and they're hurting themselves. And so, you know, loving someone means telling them the truth, no matter how much it hurts. But anyway, that's what I think, and that's why I picked that story. But we're going to go into the patron show now to find out what is the one big problem that Gen Z has, because they're not quite nailing the progressivism, although they're progressive as fuck according to Slate. There's something that's missing, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And
I can count 12 of them, so I'm interested to hear what the one is.
Well, it's the only one that matters. But if you guys want to see what that is, you have to join us in the Patreon show. So go to feedthebadger.com/subscribe to hang out with us and get our reaction to this. But in the meantime, we're going to head out right now. So firstly, again, I want to thank Hannah and Mike for joining me. I want to thank you guys most of all for joining us on the show today to check out all of these stories. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.